This is the Italian Real Estate Podcast, here to help you with the ins and outs and basics of Italian real estate, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Italian Real Estate Podcast, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Of course, we are back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. In today's episode, we wanted to go into the topic for dual citizens who want to own property or already own property in Italy and are thinking about kind of some of the practical aspects. And in this very particular episode, we're wanting to talk about residency in Italy. Is it worthwhile to make sure that you have your residency established? Is it necessary? Is it important? And so on. So I think I'm just going to let you jump into this episode because there's a lot to cover here.
A lot of our clients who have become dual citizens and who have purchased property in Italy, they ask us this question: should I establish residency in Italy from a legal standpoint, or should I just go as a visitor? And this question is a very important question because as an Italian citizen, of course, you are free to move back and forth between Italy and the US. You are free to stay in Italy for as long as you like. And even if establishing residency is a requirement at some point, if you want to make Italy your home, there are really no consequences if you don't establish residency. And of course, a lot of people are concerned about income taxes if they establish residency, which is a legitimate concern. So they ask us, should I go for the residency and what about taxes? Should I get an accountant, file my tax returns, or should I just go for the visiting Italy without establishing residency, maybe for short periods of time or longer periods of times? And what is the difference between the two options? Now, of course, if you want to make Italy your home, the proper choice to make would be to also register as a resident. That would allow you, for example, to get a residency permit for your spouse if he or she is not an Italian citizen, meaning that if you just go to Italy without registering as a resident, your spouse will not be able to get a residency permit. And of course, if you become a legal resident and stay for longer than 6 months, you will also have to worry about income taxes. But before we talk about that, let me list all of the benefits that come with the registration as resident. So you can use the Italian healthcare system for free or almost for free. We've talked about the healthcare system in many other videos. You can obtain an Italian ID. You can obtain an Italian tax code easily. You can have tax discounts on your first home. So there are a series of benefits and services that are made available by the Italian government that apply exclusively to people who reside in Italy and don't apply to people who are not residing in Italy, even if they have Italian citizenship. And of course, you are free to just go to Italy on vacation with your Italian citizenship, especially if your spouse is also an Italian citizen. You have maximum freedom of moving between the two countries. And if you don't plan on staying for long periods of time in Italy, or even if you have not made the decision yet, it's probably best if you're in a situation like that to not establish residency, because then you don't have to worry about taxes, tax returns, accountants. So it kind of depends on your specific situation. Now, it is also possible to have a situation that is in between the two options, meaning you can establish residency for a brief period of time. And if that period of time is less than 6 months, or more precisely 183 days, then you don't have to file your tax returns in Italy, meaning that Italy taxes people based on their residency in Italy, not really on their citizenship. So if you establish residency from a legal standpoint, but then you remove yourself from the registry of residence before 6 months have passed, then you're not responsible for paying taxes in Italy. Of course, that is a little bit time consuming to register yourself and then remove yourself within the 6 months or before the 6 months mark that I just mentioned. And establishing residency for a period of time which is less than 6 months would allow your spouse to also obtain a residency permit if he or she is not a citizen of Italy. But then you would have to remove yourself and your spouse from the registry of the residence within the 6 months, because like I said, otherwise you would have to worry about paying taxes in Italy. Now, regarding the taxation in Italy, what people ask us is, how does that work? So assuming that I'm an Italian citizen, I want to move to Italy, I want my spouse to establish residency with me, I want to make Italy my home, how do I go about paying taxes, filing my tax returns. Now, if you become an Italian resident, then your income will be taxed in Italy. There are, however, treaties between Italy and the US that avoid double taxation. So if you are a citizen of both countries and you reside in Italy, you can take advantage of that treaty that I just mentioned and avoid double taxation up to a certain amount, which gets updated all the time. So it's generally speaking below 100,000 in terms of yearly income. And if you're below that amount, you are completely avoiding double taxation. So in short, Italy will tax only people, no matter if they're citizens or non-citizens who reside in Italy. And the only exception is for people who own properties in Italy, who are only, of course, responsible for paying taxes in Italy for their property. So not on their income, regardless of whether they reside in Italy or not. So people who are Italian citizens who don't reside in Italy and who are not responsible for paying Italian taxes will have to pay taxes on their home in Italy, even if they don't reside in Italy. So at the end of the day, whether or not you want to establish residency in Italy as a dual citizen to enjoy your property is up to you, but it's generally speaking advisable for people who want to make Italy their home and stay in Italy for an extended period of time to establish residence in Italy to enjoy the benefits that are available to them and that are only available for to people who establish residency in Italy.
Well, Marco, thank you so much for going into all of that detail. There's a lot of information and a lot to unpack there, but there's one thing in particular that I'm curious about. And I know a lot of individuals who are thinking about getting their Italian citizenship and moving to Italy will definitely be very interested. And that is the tax breaks for your first home in Italy. How does that all work?
A lot of people, they want to, of course, get Italian citizenship and also purchase a property in Italy. And of course, they would like to receive the tax discount for first homeowners in Italy, meaning that the government has established that whoever buys their first home in Italy and establishes residency in that property can enjoy a tax discount equal to a 7% less in taxes that you end up having to pay. So a discount that is not insignificant. So if you end up being able to use the tax discount for first homeowners, you have to pay only the 2% on the value on paper of the property, the so-called cadastral value of the property. If it's your second home or if you can't enjoy the tax benefit, then you have to pay the 9%. So there is a very big difference. So a lot of people, they ask us, how can I get the tax discount? And the answer is you will need to be able to establish residency in the property that you purchase within 18 months from the purchase. Now, let me take a step back. Anybody can buy a property in Italy, even if they don't reside in Italy and even if they don't hold Italian citizenship. And as a matter of fact, a lot of clients, they start the purchase process before they become Italian citizens, or even if they don't want to become Italian citizens, or they can't. Now, that process, like I said, can be initiated even if you don't have Italian citizenship or if you don't reside in Italy. However, you have 18 months then after the purchase to relocate to Italy and establish residency from a legal standpoint in the property that you purchase, to maintain basically the tax discount that was given to you at the beginning when you purchased the property. So you already pay less taxes and you, so to speak, promise to be able to establish residency and so to move to Italy within 18 months from the purchase. And if you fail to do so, you have to pay the difference. Now, you can only move to Italy if you are an Italian citizen or if you obtain an Italian visa. Now, those people who qualify for citizenship by descent and who don't qualify for an Italian visa, or they're not interested in obtaining an Italian visa or to go through that process, so they want to focus on their Italian citizenship by descent process, it's advisable for them to calculate how long that process will take. Maybe not exactly, but roughly, because that will determine whether they will be able to move to Italy as Italian citizens and legally establish residency in the property within 18 months. And if they fail to do so, they will have to pay the difference in taxes that I mentioned before. And considering the length of the process and the delays that consulates are experiencing, it is important to calculate as accurately as possible how long the citizenship process is going to take.
Very interesting, Marco. And so this first purchase, is this on just the sale price, or is this also ongoing with your annual property taxes that you have to pay?
It is a one-time tax that you pay at the time of the purchase. The one that I've been referring to, which is the largest tax that you have to take into consideration when purchasing a home in Italy. And then there's an annual taxation that applies to you only if you cannot benefit from the first home tax break that was described before. So basically, if you fall into that category, not only you pay a discounted tax when you purchase the property, but also you don't pay any annual taxes, as opposed to somebody who doesn't fall into that category, who has to pay the higher one-time tax that is due at the time of the purchase and also needs to pay annual taxes. By the way, annual taxes in Italy, they're not very high. They depend on a variety of factors. So they're relatively small. But of course, it depends on the area. It depends on the municipality where you purchase the property. It depends on whether it's a luxury property, if the property has certain features. So it's impossible to predetermine the annual taxes. They need to be determined regarding each single property, preferably by an accountant.
Thank you, Marco. So just to clarify what you're saying, like, for example, if somebody who's watching this episode has maybe visited Italy a number of times, but doesn't have Italian citizenship, doesn't own any property in Italy, doesn't own anything in Italy, and has never owned anything in Italy, if they were to go to purchase a property in Italy and it's their first time owning any property in Italy, that means on the purchase price, there's only 2% tax. And then annually, they have no taxes that they have to pay on that property.
That's correct. And the requirement, as I said before, is that they establish residency illegally within 18 months from the purchase. And if that requirement is met, what you said is correct.
That is absolutely amazing. And also, just one further clarification, say there is somebody who is watching this and they are already living in Italy. Again, regardless of whether they are Italian or not, they still could take advantage of this tax deduction, regardless of whether they've been living in Italy or not.
That's correct, as long as it's their first home that they're purchasing.
That is absolutely amazing. But anyway, Marco, thank you so much for making yourself available for this episode of the Italian Real Estate Podcast. Of course, if anybody is needing help with purchasing property in Italy, how can they get in contact with you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, italianrealestatelawyers.com, or give us a call. Our number is on the website.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're interested in more information like this, or even about getting Italian citizenship, be sure that you're subscribed to this YouTube channel as well as the audio only podcast. But of course, if you're subscribed to this YouTube channel, you're not only subscribed to the Italian Real Estate Podcast, but also automatically subscribed to the Italian Citizenship Podcast. And if you're interested in more about life abroad and living abroad from the perspective of a dual citizen expat, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia. You can also search for Not Your Average Globetrotter on YouTube or your favorite podcasting player of choice. But of course, again, we have been here with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we'll see you all next time for the next episode of the Italian Real Estate Podcast. Later.
Thank you.